부탁드리겠습니다. 이번 행사에서 저희는 한영 동시 통역을 제공하고 있습니다. 가지고 계신 리시버에서 채널 5번으로 맞춰주시면 되겠습니다. 그럼 곧 시작하도록 하겠습니다. Good afternoon, everyone. May I have your attention, please? Thank you so much for coming 2018 the Future Innovation Forum. This forum will begin soon. Please have your seats. Please switch your mobile phone to the silent mode. We offer simultaneous interpretation, so please tune into channel 5. Channel 5. Thank you.
하셔도 되고 아니면 힙스 하셔도 되고 그리고 지금 오프닝은 아니에요. 지금은 한 번 더 양해 받아가야 돼요. 지금 전체 사진 찍고
2018 미래혁신 포럼에 참여하시는 몇몇 연사분들이 현재 다음 이전 스케줄을 좀 정리하고 계셔서 조금 더 기다려 주시기를 양해 부탁드리겠습니다. 그러면서 한 번 더 말씀드릴 텐데요. 오시는 입구에 저희가 따뜻한 차와 커피 그리고 간단한 다과를 준비했습니다. 그리고 원활한 행사 진행을 위해서 소지하고 계신 휴대폰은 진동 모드로 바꿔주시거나 꺼주시면 감사하겠습니다. 또한 이번 행사는 한영 동시 통역으로 진행이 되는데요. 가지고 계신 리시버의 채널을 5번으로 맞춰주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. Now we are waiting for some other speakers who is commented into the past events. So please understand it will be delayed a little bit. We offered a snack and hot coffee and tea, so please enjoy that. And for the simultaneous translation, please tune into channel 5. We will start soon. Thank you. 자, 그럼 이제부터 2018 미래혁신포럼 혁신의 재설계 공공과 행정혁신을 중심으로 포럼을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 이제 곧 시작할 텐데요. 자리에 착석해 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. Hello everyone, thank you for coming to 2018 Future Innovation Forum. We will start soon, so please have your seats. And for the translation, tune into the channel 5. Thank you. 안녕하세요. 드디어 인사드립니다. 저는 이번 2018 미래혁신포럼 공공과 행정혁신을 중심으로 혁신의 재설계라는 포럼을 진행을 맡게 된 한선경이라고 합니다. 반갑습니다. 앞으로 이틀 동안 어떻게 새롭게 혁신을 재설계할 수 있을까? 공공의 혁신은 어떻게 진행되어야 되나? 행정의 혁신은 무엇을 생각해야 되나? 이런 이야기를 많이 나누게 될 텐데요. 시작하기에 앞서서 그럼 이런 얘기를 하려면 어떤 마음으로 우리는 이 자리에 와 있어야 될까라는 지점을 한번 생각해 보면 어떨까 생각이 듭니다. 여기 시장님도 와 계신데요. 시장님이 마음이 준비되신다면 모두가 준비된 거나 마찬가지겠죠? 라는 생각으로 시장님부터 모두 간단히 좀 일어나 보시겠어요? Can you please stand up? 보통 행정의 혁신이다, 공공의 혁신이다. 그러면 많은 사람들이 조금은 더 유연할 수 없을까? 조금은 더 틀에 있는 것이 아니라 좀 그 박스에서 나와서 생각해 볼 수 없을까? 이런 생각을 많이 하게 되는 것 같아요. 그러려면 이런 포럼도 좀 달라야 되지 않나? 이런 생각을 하게 됐습니다. 그래서 제가 질문을 하나 드릴 텐데요. 아마 이런 일이 오시는 기관에 따라서 아주 어색한 일일 수 있겠지만 모두에게 좀 더 기분 좋은 시작이 될 수 있을 거라고 기대하면서 제가 질문을 드릴게요. 그럼 옆에 분에게 당신이 누구신지 그리고 어디서 오셨는지 설명해 주시면서 그 질문에 대한 답을 나눠주시면 됩니다. 통역이 끝났나요? 네. 그럼 제 질문은 어떤 이유 때문에 Are you okay with that? 어떤 이유 때문에 이 혁신의 재설계, 공공과 행정 혁신을 중심으로라는 포럼에 여러분들은 오게 되셨나요? 그 이야기를 옆에 분과 나눠주시면 되겠습니다. 준비되셨나요? Are you ready? 그럼 지금부터 시작해 보겠습니다. 옆에 분을 찾아주세요. Hello. 자, 그럼 옆에 분으로 한번 넘어가 볼까요? 한 분 더. Please turn into the other person and then introduce yourself and then talk to other person that why you are here. 제가 한 번 더 그냥 I will you know each other, right? Hello. Okay. So I'm 성영 of this one. Yeah. She does this connecting dots. Yeah, that's right. So Thank you, everyone. So for the simultaneous presentation, please tune into the channel 5. Channel 5, thank you. Channel 5. Are you okay with that? Yeah, channel 5. 네. 벌써 다 앉으셨네요. 앞에 분들은 아직 안 앉으셨는데 너무나 감사합니다. 혹시 한 분 정도 이분 정말 특별하고 이 사람이 왜 여기에 왔는지는 우리가 한번 나눠볼 필요가 있다, 이 자리에서. 혹시 그런 대화를 나누신 분이 있을까요? 지금 어두우신 분들 많습니다. 왜 자꾸 이런 거 시키나 하면서. 네, 알고 있습니다. 네. 혹시 누가 나눠주실 수 있으실까요? 이 사람과 얘기해 보니까 이 사람과의 얘기는 내가 꼭 모두와 나눠야 될 것 같다 라고 하신 분. 제가 그냥 무작위로 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. Mr. 보노펠? 보노펠 씨가 여기 계신데요. 혹시 어떤 얘기를 나누셨는지 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 한국 분들 채널 5번으로 맞춰주셔야 통역이 들립니다.
Yes, now I respond, and I think that's also then the moment that I stop listening. So there's this transmission moment. We met just a little bit before, and well, it's good that you will have more time later to explain the ideas, because my dear neighbor, he will be presenting 3 cases, and he has very little speaking time, so I thought, well, what is then the problem? Because you can tell about the opportunities, but what is then the problem? Well, he said, well, you know Japan, well, we have this over-regulation, we do create these nice spaces for new interactions. How do you fit that in then? Even though that in urban environments you have these great opportunities. Should I go on or better give the mic to you?
Yeah, I think the other speakers are waiting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, 네, 감사합니다. 큰 박수 네, 부탁드리겠습니다. 혹시 한국 분 중에 한 분 제가 여쭤볼까요? Any participants from Korea? 제가 아는 사람한테 하는 게 제일 편하죠. 네. 어떻게 여기에 오시게 됐는지.
우리 여기 파트너가?
네. 어떤 대화를 나누셨는지.
네. 저희는 내일 네, 안녕하세요. 저는 첫 번째 세션의 토론자로 초대를 받아서 참석을 하게 된 성래골 에너지 전환마을의 김소영입니다. 제가 같이 대화를 나눴던 제 옆에 파트너도 내일 2번째 세션에 발제를 하는 단체에서 나왔더라고요. 그래서 저희는 이해관계자로 둘이 앉아서 서로 각각의 단체에 대해서 이야기 나눴습니다.
네, 감사합니다. 발표하시느라고 오셨군요. 네. 내일 오늘 저녁을 기대해 보면서 그럼 이게 참 어색한 일인데요. 그래도 옆에 분들하고 얘기 나누시니까 좀 즐겁지 않으셨어요? 네. 그러면 본격적으로 여러분들의 참여에 감사드리면서 오늘 하루를 시작해 보려고 합니다. 제가 여기 자리를 옮겨야 된다고 하더라고요. 네. 첫 세션은 기조 세션인데요. 기조 세션의 제목은 공공혁신 넥스트, 관점의 변화를 넘어 혁신의 근육 키우기라는 제목으로 시작됩니다. 사실 오늘 전체 자리는 공공과 행정혁신에 대한 각국의 많은 전문가분들, 한국에서 애써주시는 참가자분들 때문에 가능했는데요. 그 첫 번째 스피커로 기조 세션의 좌장을 맡아주실 영국의 혁신기관 네스타 제프 멀건 대표의 기조 발조를 시작으로 기조 세션을 시작하려고 합니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. I will be speaking in English, not Korean, I'm afraid. So put on a headset if you need one. For me and all the international visitors, it is fantastic to be back in Seoul. This is a city full of ideas and energy and creativity, at a time when in some parts of the world history is going in the wrong direction. So we come here to be inspired and to learn new things. What I'm going to do, though, is share a little bit about some of the innovations happening around the world, some of the new methods being developed, which will hopefully help our conversation today. And hopefully, I have a slide or two. There, okay. So this is the negative story. Donald Trump, Duterte, Bolsonaro. We have, in some parts of the world, moving back to authoritarian, regressive leadership, and often crushing the good innovation. Although in America, of course, the cities are fighting back and are leading innovation around climate change, perhaps even more because of Donald Trump. But there are lots of good examples which point in the opposite direction. So we will hear shortly from Estonia, a fantastic but small beacon of innovation in Europe, with some very radical ideas like creating e-citizenship. So any of you can become a citizen of Estonia through a business. And we have some examples of very ambitious, large-scale innovation. This is Ada from India. We have Anil Gupta with us. Well over 1 billion people now have a biometric ID. This has helped hundreds of millions of people get a new bank account. It makes it possible to reinvent public services and is a good symbol of very confident public administration creating new value for citizens using smart technology. This is a very different example just prompted by a conversation yesterday. We were talking about plastic. Everywhere in the world, plastic is a problem. This is Surabaya in Indonesia, where you can pay for your bus ticket with plastic. So this is an interesting public innovation. You see them bringing their plastic bottles in to get a ticket to ride on the bus. So it helps poverty, it helps reduce plastics. Hopefully, it doesn't make people create new plastic. There was once a scheme in a city in South America where they had a problem of rats. And so they paid people for bringing in a dead rat. And then a month later, they discovered lots of people were breeding rats in order to be paid for bringing in dead rats. So you have to be a little bit careful with these schemes. But I like this one. So what I want to talk about briefly is some of the innovations which I think are combining these three things. First of all, power. How do you make people have power, feel empowered at a time when sometimes they feel a loss of control over their job, their life, their future? And how do you harness that with technology and with data and evidence about what works? And the combination of these, I think, is where some of the most powerful innovations are happening. This is a very small example from the Netherlands, the city of Tilburg. And here, the old people can hack the traffic lights. They download an app, and then when they come to the traffic lights, they get more time to cross the street than before. So it's people power plus technology, making old people feel the city is more their own. Another example is Paris, which, like Seoul, has a participative budget, 100 million euro, and unusually gives 10 million euro to children in the schools to learn how to allocate money themselves. This is an example from the UK where we empower people to contribute to public services. In this case, volunteers use Good Sam to help the ambulance service. So if somebody has a heart attack and they call for an ambulance, it also finds a trained volunteer who can get to you more quickly than the ambulance, and every minute saved saves lives. And because this is done with open source technology, it has spread all over the world very quickly as a new kind of citizen engagement in services. We have another trend, which is the trend to much more systematic experimentation in government. This is happening in development, in economics, in behavioral science, in education, running experiments, sometimes with a formal control group. And the Canadian government under Justin Trudeau has made this really a theme for every policy should first be tested in an experimental way. Finland has an experimentation office in the Prime Minister's office, a very different approach to government than just classic top-down imposition. We're also seeing a new field of what we call anticipatory regulation, where you use experimental methods for laws and regulations. Very common now in finance and fintech and banking, sometimes helped by open data, which we can talk about later. We run a project with 5 cities in the UK on drones, helping them work together to experiment with new uses of drones to help with healthcare or infrastructure or policing. And we've just created the first national regulator for artificial intelligence to help think through the ethical dilemmas, the practical questions of bias in data and algorithms, but using an experimental method to anticipate technology change rather than respond. We're then seeing a big rise of an approach which Mayor Park in the past has been an advocate of, which is public services harvesting ideas from many, many sources, not just from within the bureaucracy. And actually NASA in America is now the best example. So for designing spacesuits or designing software, they use crowdsourcing for almost everything they do. As a matter of course, harvesting the best ideas from anywhere in the world, sometimes paying money to students or inventors or programmers. And in Nesta, we have a thing called challenges.org, which uses the same method for social innovation, but also for things like data-driven farming in South Asia, or all sorts of topics. You post a problem and then organize a community of innovators globally to help solve it. A good example of this now at the city level is one where, which brings some of these themes together, is a project in Barcelona called Decode, which we help run at Nesta, which is trying to give citizens control of their data. So all over the world, people worry that big companies are taking their data and they don't control it. This is experimenting with putting them in control of who is using their data and for what. And I want to say a little bit about where I think this is happening for cities, which is the rise of city data collaboratives, which bring together data at a city level for people to control themselves. There are now many examples around the world in transport or infrastructure or economics. Canada, in Montreal and Saskatchewan, has really good examples of city-level data. And in the UK, we are doing this for jobs, showing how you can provide people with data on skills, job opportunities, how they can be most resilient to changes in the labor market, but run through a city-level data collaborative. And a final example is innovations in how you use money. There's a lot of discussion here on social impact investment. This is a social impact bond for loneliness, which we help run in England, where the government pays for reductions in loneliness. So it's a way of funding NGOs, social organizations, which reduce isolation amongst mainly older people, because that then saves money for the hospitals and for residential care. So it's both a new policy field, and we now have a minister for loneliness, but also an innovation in how to make money, public money, work better. And a final comment is that many of these innovations around the world are part of, I think, a broader movement of the public sector becoming much more systematic in innovation tools. These are some of the many methods being used around the world, from experiment to design methods, anticipatory regulation, prizes, procurement, helping ideas move from being just a good idea to having impact at large scale. And some of this is being led by a thing called States of Change, which is an unusual collective of about 30 governments, bringing together teams in governments who are doing innovation, so the practitioners learn from each other and help to train others, from Australia and Chile to Canada and Europe. And we would love to have Korea and Seoul part of States of Change, which is trying to accelerate learning about how to make innovation work in the public sector. So that's all from me. I hope that rather quick tour of some examples of innovation around the world will help our conversation. And as I said, I think the best ones link together power, shifting power out to citizens, but using the best of technology from science or business to help that happen, and turning data from being something which is harvested by Google or Facebook into something which citizens themselves can control. Thank you.
Thank you. 감사합니다. 제프 몰건 대표님의 발표를 통해서 세계에서 어떻게 행정혁신, 공공혁신의 흐름이 일어나고 있는지 알게 됐고요. 또 이러한 정부의 역량을 키우는 네스타의 이니셔티브를 들을 수 있어서 너무나 좋았습니다. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 다음을 이어서 저희 서울특별시의 박원순 시장님의 기조연설이 있도록 하겠습니다. 시장님 큰 박수로 맞이 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 여러분 정말 반갑습니다. 오늘 이렇게 가을에 정말 귀한 시간에 이렇게 방문해 주신 여러분 감사드리고, 특별히 우리 외국에서 이렇게 오신 여러분들께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 사실 어찌 보면 이렇게 아름다운 계절에, 지금 저렇게 낙엽이 뚝뚝 떨어지는 이런 계절에 우리가 실내에서 이렇게 있다는 것은 조금 약간 잔인한 시간이긴 합니다. 그렇죠? 네, 그렇지만 우리가 또 더 많은 배움을 위해서 이 자리에 모였습니다. 사실 2011년 10월 26일 제가 서울시장으로 10월 당선이 됐습니다. 그리고 2011년 10월 27일부터 업무를 시작했는데요. 며칠 전이 바로 만 7년이 되던 해였습니다. 7년 동안 제가 서울시장으로 있었죠. 박수가 없는 거 보니까 별로 제가 잘한 게 없는 모양이죠. 네, 사실 이 기록은 서울시장의 역사에서 가장 오래된 장수한 기록입니다. 그 다음에 심지어는 조선 왕조 600년을 쳐도 제가 가장 오래된 시장입니다. 네. 네. 그래서 조금 뭐 변화가 있었나요? 네. 별로 변화가 없었던 모양이네. 예. 사실 저는 많은 변화를 만들었다고 생각합니다. 서울은 어떤 혁신의 공간으로 저는 바뀌었다고 그렇게 생각하고 있는데요. 바로 이 장소가 그걸 상징하고 있습니다. 여러분들이 계신 이 서울혁신파크라는 곳은 본래 그 질병관리본부가 있었던 곳입니다. 이게 이사 가고 나서 서울시가 확보를 했고, 본래 여기는 뭐 큰 백화점이라든지 이런 상업적인 공간으로 화려하게 개발될 예정이었습니다. 그러나 저는 그런 상업적 개발이 반드시 서울의 미래를 담보하는 것이 아니라고 생각했습니다. 그래서 여기는 혁신파크로서, 혁신의 해방구로서 혁신을 꿈꾸는 많은 사람들이 여기서 자신의 꿈을 꾸고 실현할 수 있는 그런 공간으로 만들어야 되겠다고 결심했습니다. 그 사이에 수많은 사람들이 이 공간을 엿보고 탐내고 압력을 가했습니다. 그러나 저는 그게 저항했고, 온전히 사회혁신가들을 위한, 청년들을 위한 공간으로 지켜내고 있습니다. 거의 이제는 완공이 돼 가고 있죠. 여기에 수천 개의 사회적 기업 또는 사회 변화를 꿈꾸는 그런 단체들이 이곳에서 있습니다. 아마 해외에서 오신 분들은 한번 여기 다 건물들을 또 단체들을 둘러보시는 것만으로도 아주 중요한 투어가 될 거라고 저는 확신하고 있습니다. 제가 서울시장이 돼서 했던 가장 첫 번째 일은 무엇보다도 저의 권력을, 시장의 권력을, 서울시의 권력을 시민들에게 이전하는 것이었습니다. 저는 과거에 이런 1000만이 넘는 도시를 적어도 한 사람이, 아무리 그 사람이 천재이고 아무리 좋은 생각을 가졌다 하더라도 올바로 통치할 수는 없는 것이라고 생각했습니다. 그러면 이 권력을 어떻게 행사해야 가장 효율적으로 그리고 새로운 세상을 만들어낼 수 있을 것인가 저는 고민했습니다. 그것은 결국은 시민들에게 권력을 돌려주는 것이야말로 그 권력을 가장 효과적으로 생산적으로 쓸 수 있는 길이라고 확신했습니다. 처음에 제가 서울시에 마을 공동체를 만든다고 했을 때 사람들은 굉장히 비웃었죠. 이 현대화된 도시에 무슨 마을이냐고. 그래서 마을이라는 것은 19세기나 있었을 법한, 그래서 이런 어떤 농촌 시대로 되돌아가는 것이 가자는 것이냐 이렇게 비판도 있었죠. 네. 그러나 지난 6년 동안 서울시는 수많은 공동체가 탄생했고 마을의 문제를 스스로 고민하고 스스로 해결하고 스스로 실현해내는 그런 단위들이 등장했습니다. 또 수만 명의 활동가들이 탄생했죠. 그런 변화가 바로 이 지난 7년 동안 저는 이루어졌다고 생각합니다. 뿐만 아니라 이런 어떤 참여민주주의가 확실히 꽃을 피기 시작했습니다. 사람들은 누구의 지시를 받아서 하는 것보다는 자신이 스스로 그 문제를 해결하기 위해서 고민을 하는 것들이 그 사람의 성장에 훨씬 큰 기여를 저는 한다고 생각합니다. 마을의 문제를 스스로 결정하게 하는 것이죠. 거기에는 또 예산이 필요합니다. 그래서 참여 예산제가 도입이 됐죠. 그래서 한 500억 정도의 예산이 참여 예산제로 배치가 되다가 지금은 이번에는 1조 가량을 하기로 대폭 확대되게 됐습니다. 물론 돈의 문제는 아닙니다. 돈보다는 더 중요한 것은 스스로의 문제를 스스로 해결하는 이런 능력, 임파워먼트가 저는 훨씬 더 중요한 것이라고 생각합니다. 사실 이제는 마을 계획단이라는 게 만들어져서 마을의 문제를 마을 사람들이 모여서 고민하고 거기에 대한 해결책을 내놓는 이런 과정들이 저는 서울시의 그동안의 위대한 발전이었다고 저는 생각하고 있습니다. 말하자면 이런 과정을 통해서 사람들은 스스로 성장하는 법이라고 저는 생각합니다. 그 무엇보다도 저는 이런 공간의 위대함을 믿는 사람입니다. 방금 서울혁신파크 얘기를 했지만 동시에 청년들을 위한 무중력지대라든지 또 우리가 도시 재생 과정에서 만들어지는 이런 어떤 공유의 공간들, 이런 것들이 시민들이 모여서 서로 대화하고 그리고 뭔가 그 지역의 문제를 스스로 깨닫는 그런 과정이었다고 생각합니다. 심지어는 부모 커뮤니티라는 걸 저희들이 만들었는데 거기는 사실은 겨우 한 300만 원 정도의 돈을 지급하면 이분들이 와서 수다를 떨다 보면 스스로 이런 문제가 해결되는 것이라고 저는 생각합니다. 그렇다면 서울시가 과연 지난 7년 동안 모든 걸 잘했냐? 사실 저는 불만투성입니다. 아까 칭찬을 많이 주셨지만 우리 제프가 뭐 문제가 많죠. 아직 칸막이가 충분히 극복되지 않았고 주민들이 아직은 주민들과 이 시 공공기관 사이에 저는 불신이 완전히 그친 것도 아니라고 생각합니다. 더군다나 7년 동안의 혁신을 통해서 혁신에 대한 약간의 지겨움과 피로도가 생겼습니다. 그래서 이제 혁신할 필요가 생겼습니다. 지금 우리는 새로운 단계에 저는 접어들어 있다고 생각하고요. 그리고 저는 우리 지금 제프 몰간 좀 전에 기조 발제를 했는데요. 제가 사실 이분을 만난 것은 서울시장이 되기 전이었습니다. 그런데 그때는 제가 희망작소라는 연구소를 하고 있었는데 그때 영 파운데이션을 만나면서 너무나 유사하다는 걸 느끼고 그때 기음이 5를 한번 했죠. 다시 한번 해볼까요? 네. 서로 다른 나라에서 다른 지역에서 그렇지만 고민의 내용과 깊이가 너무나 유사한 것에 정말 놀랬죠. 그리고 저는 제가 소셜 이노베이션의 그런 운동에 같이 참여했고 그래서 우리 루이즈를 만났고 그리고 식스에 저도 열심히 활동해 왔습니다. 그런 결과물이 서울의 이런 혁신의 변화로 나타나고 있습니다. 다시 말씀드리면 저는 오늘 이 자리에 어딘가 누군가가 바로 이런 영향을 받아서 또 어느 공간에서 이런 사회 혁신에 거대한 꿈을 꾸고 그것을 실현해내는 사람들이 이 자리에도 있을 것이고 또 앞으로도 얼마든지 생겨날 것이라고 봅니다. 저는 지금은 거대한 상호 배움과 벤치마킹의 시대에 우리가 살고 있다고 생각합니다. 그것은 어떤 국경을 넘어서 공간을 넘어서 이루어지는 일이죠. 저는 이 사회혁신이라는 것이 우리가 서울시가 그런 혁신의 큰 실험장이 저는 되고 싶습니다. 여러분들이 제안하는 모든 일을 서울에서 실험할 수 있도록 또 때로는 실패도 좋습니다. 이곳에서 모든 그런 실험이 이루어질 수 있도록 그리고 또 이러한 흐름이 또 다른 지역에서 다시 반복되고 또 그것이 새로운 어떤 영감으로 또 다른 지역에 영향을 미치는 저는 이런 어떤 파도의 순환이 이루어지는 그런 현상이 이 지구상에 나타나기를 바랍니다. 아까도 우리 제프가 말씀한 것처럼 온 세상에는 반드시 선한 움직임만이 있지는 않습니다. 때로는 과거로 돌아가려는 이런 복고적인 움직임도 있고 또 과거의 그런 부정적인 어떤 사회로 돌아가는 측면도 있습니다. 우리 한국도 마찬가지입니다. 그러나 저는 이런 사회 혁신과 이런 선한 운동이 우리 사회를 지배하고 우리 지구촌을 지배할 수 있도록 오늘 우리가 모인 것이 바로 그런 것이 아닌가. 사회 혁신의 결국 최종의 목표는 보다 더 공정하고 정의롭고 또 동시에 평등하고 또 우리 모두가 주인이 되고 그리고 또 그 주민들이 스스로를 완성할 수 있는 그런 시대로 나아가기를 저는 간곡히 바랍니다. 다시 한번 여러분 환영합니다. 감사합니다.
시장님의 발표 너무나 감사합니다. 서울시가 가지고 있는 혁신에 대한 열정, 앞으로 더 나아가고자 하는 확신과 용기, 이 모든 것이 계속 잘 되기를 바라겠습니다. 그럼 다음 발표는 영국에서 오신 스티브 리드 의원님을 모시려고 합니다. 네. 스티브 리드 씨는 아마 람베스구의 행정 실험으로 여러분들이 많이 아실 텐데요. 아마 오늘 그 행정 실험과 함께 그 국회의원으로 활동하시면서 어떤 변화들을 이끌었는지에 대해서 소개해 주시도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
And technology. I'm very pleased I'm talking about power rather than technology because you'll see I'm still. Is that? Oh. Now you can hear what I'm saying. I just wanted to say, first of all, to Mayor Park, thank you very much for inviting me here to your amazing city. I arrived 2 days ago, and I've spent the last 2 days visiting the sites. I've walked along the Chongyecheon. I've shopped in Insadong. I've been amazed at the food in Dongdaemun, and I've visited more palaces than I can count on the fingers of one hand. So it's an absolutely amazing city you have here. But what I've noticed going around is just how much life and vibrancy and culture and art and engagement that there is, and that I'm sure is a tribute to the Mayor of Seoul, who is regarded worldwide as one of the great innovators. So I'm very, very honoured to be here today. Now, my name is Steve Reid. I'm a Member of Parliament in the UK, a Labour Member of Parliament. I was elected 6 years ago, and I'm Shadow Minister for Civil Society, which means I speak for the opposition on issues relating to civil society.
but I was previously, before I was elected into Parliament, I was the leader of a council in London. That's the equivalent of a mayor, but for a borough called Lambeth in London. And Lambeth became the first cooperative council in the United Kingdom. And there are now a network of 31 cooperative councils, but I've remained the president of the Cooperative Councils Network. And what struck me then, just listening to the Mayor of Seoul, is how similar the issues are on the other side of the world that we're all trying to tackle. Issues about building a fairer society, issues about power, participation and innovation. Those are challenges for all cities and all governments, national and local, everywhere, and it's important that we're learning from each other. Now, the cooperative councils, see if this works. Nope. No. How do I change the slide? I press the other button. There you go. It's just as well I'm talking about power, not technology, because I'm not very good with technology. Anyway, this is the Cooperative Council's logo. There are 31 councils across the United Kingdom that are members of the Cooperative Councils Network. Councils are our form of local government, and they include places like London, Glasgow, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Southampton, Manchester, Liverpool, so right across the country. And what they're trying to do is understand how you can innovate through cooperation between the people that have power and the people affected by decisions that are taken by the city, by public service providers. And fundamentally, this is about how do we share power with citizens so that citizens have more decision-making effect over the decisions that will be affecting them. Now, why do we want to do this? Is the first question. And that's because the old model for government, in my opinion, is broken both financially and politically. Financially, because we no longer have enough money to do all the things we want to do or to support the people that need it. We have an aging population. That means we have to spend more money caring for older people. But in the UK, and I'm sure in many other parts of the world, we have less money following the crash 10 years ago and the austerity policies that have followed. So councils in the UK, for instance, have 50% less funding than they had in 2010, and yet they're still having to look after people. So we have to do things differently. We have to reduce demand and prevent problems from happening in the first place, and we have to access the insights that communities themselves have, their own experience of their lives, their own understanding of those problems. We don't use that enough to shape the services that we provide to give people support. The second point is politically, the system is bust as well. People no longer trust politicians to have all the answers. And that's for the very good reason that politicians do not have all the answers. We are just individuals, whatever position we're elected to. But we collectively are a community full of ideas. And if we can harness the insights of all of us, we can make a difference. I think this issue goes even bigger than just public services, because I would argue that we're facing a crisis of liberal democracy. You see the rise of populists and nationalists and extremists all around the world. Bolsonaro elected in Brazil only yesterday. Donald Trump in America. We've had the issue of Brexit in the UK. Now, we face a crisis of liberal democracy that if we don't find ways to correct, then I think democracy itself is under threat. And the answer, for me, is that we double down on democracy and we give people more power, and that is the only route you can restore trust in a political system that's no longer working. Now, I was thinking about how I was going to structure my contribution today, and I'm going to do it in that way. For me, the absolute center of this issue is power. Power, who has power, who doesn't have power, how do we share power more widely with people who are affected by decisions but aren't able to influence what those decisions do. Now, in our cooperative councils in the UK, they're all innovating in different ways. I'm just going to give you some very quick examples, but Rochdale in the northwest has mutualised all of their social housing so that the people that live in it now control what happens to it. In Croydon, the borough that I now represent, they're developing community land trusts that allow the people living in an area to control what happens in terms of development and the building of new services in those areas, rather than the council doing it on its own. In Stevenage, which is in the southeast of England, they're experimenting with community budgeting. In Lambeth, where I used to be the council leader, they've set up the world's biggest community youth trust to give communities power to tackle violent youth crime, which is affecting those communities. In Plymouth, in the southwest of England, they've set up over 30 community-owned energy-generating cooperatives, which provides jobs and sustainable energy, and the surplus, the profit, is ploughed back into the community to achieve the things that those communities want to achieve. So many, many different ways of transferring power from the state to the citizen, and those are some of the ways that is happening. Now, power for me is the central issue, and we often talk about the need to give citizens more voice. You'll hear that very often, but for me, voice isn't enough, because without power, a voice can be ignored. A voice without power is a cry in the dark. So we have to find ways to give people the power they need to demand that their voice gets heard, and that is particularly important for the most socially excluded and the most marginalized in our societies. Those without power have the lowest voice, and those without a voice have the least power. We have to connect those two things. Now, to do that at scale requires a very different kind of organization. We can't keep the kind of organizations that we currently have because they weren't set up to share power widely in the ways that we're thinking about. So we have to rethink our organizational culture, our organizational structures, our decision-making processes, and even what outcomes we are looking for. Now, doing this is extremely challenging because it can be very counterintuitive to organizations to behave in such a different way when they're used to operating quite differently. So I'm going to walk through those areas each in turn and explain to you my thinking about what we're trying to tackle here. Now, we talk a lot about inequalities of wealth and opportunity on my side of politics. The mayor talks about it as well, and quite rightly. Those are the things we care about because they scar society. But we don't talk about the inequality of power. And the inequality of power underpins inequalities of wealth and opportunity. Whether that's in the economy, whether it's in the community, whether it's in the public services that you use, if you don't have power, you can't get the things out of those that you want. The poorer you are, the less power you have. And the less power you have, the poorer you are. So to build a fairer society, we have to tackle the inequality of power. Now, all organizations over time seek to extend and grow their own power. And without checks and balances, that means that they will sometimes override the interests of the people they were set up to serve. And that applies to public services as well. Voice, as I said, on its own isn't enough. You need the power to assert voice. Now, how do we help people we have to help people to take back power. You can't just give power as if it was an altruistic act. Communities are innately powerful, and we need to build their capacity to take power so that those services that people rely on do more of what they really want. So where power lies, who has power and who doesn't have power is absolutely critical to all of this. Now, the second point is about culture. Organizational culture is very, very deep-rooted. And most organizations that are part of government or are delivering public services were not set up to share their power with the people they're supporting. So asking them to do that can be counterintuitive to them culturally. So one of the roles of an organization like the council I was running had to be to help build the capacity of people to participate in decisions that affected them. People that are already articulate and used to participating find this very, very easily. But the particular issue that we face is the more marginalized and socially excluded who often lack the capacity to participate. So we have to build that capacity around them so that they're able to let us know what it is they want and then have some hope of getting it. Now, creating the space for innovation also requires us to take risks. But government is very risk-averse. So we have to change the culture and the attitude towards risk to allow ourselves the possibility of failure, because it's only in that failure, in that space of potential failure, that you're able to innovate and do things differently. Now, failure is fine and making mistakes is fine as long as you learn from them. It's only when you keep repeating them that this becomes a problem. But we all, as human beings and organizations, are the same. we all learn by mistakes. So we have to create a different attitude to risk-taking if we want to learn how to do things differently. Open data is something the Mayor was talking about as well. People can't participate unless they have access to data and information that public service delivery organisations often try to hoard and conceal because they're afraid it will be used against them. So one of the things that we did when I was leader of Lambeth Council was we published an open data policy that was very simple. It was that we will publish everything that we're not legally prevented from publishing, and we will allow citizens to access that and use it to try and help shape the policies that they're relying on. The final point I wanted to make in terms of culture was about relationships. Very often we see people as problems to be managed. We don't recognise that people are part of strong social networks, families, communities, and friendship networks, all of which is are sources of support to that individual. If you focus support on the individual without recognising all of that network around them, you can not only fail to harness resource that is available, but you can actually break some of those relationships, and that can be very damaging to people's well-being. Now, in terms of organisation, because I think we need to be looking at how organisations are structured as well, this was how I came to conceive of public services as we currently know them. They tend to be very hierarchical. They tend to be very top-down. I heard the Mayor just now talking about delegating decision-making to citizens. But in organisations that were set up to take decisions at the top and do things to people, that is a very easy thing to say, but a very hard thing to do. Because, like water, power flows from the top to the bottom. And trying to get an organisation that was designed to be top-down to share its power more fairly is a bit like trying to push water back up a tap. It's a near impossibility. So we need new structures, and we piloted some of these new structures that allow us to do things in a very different way. And I'll try to explain that very confusing graphic to you in a way that I hope makes sense. But what you have on this side is a government organisation as they are currently structured. Those are silos, so they could be education, public housing, resources. There's somebody very powerful at the top of each of them. They have a lot of members of staff and budgets that they control, and they take decisions about citizens here at the bottom. Silo mentality, top down, doing things to people instead of doing things with people. I think many of us involved in government would recognise that model as being how government works. On the right, you've got what a truly empowering council can become. And it's kind of, I don't know if people are familiar with the concept of platform cooperativism, but what you've got there is the council, instead of being the top-down decision maker, becomes the enabler. That bar at the bottom there is the council as a platform, and what it's providing is IT networks, financial resources, legal and regulatory compliance, all of the back-office systems that you need to make services run properly and efficiently. But those circles are communities of interest of people who have a need that they want to be met, and they anchor the services that they define to be used on the platform which the public administration has now become. So citizens get to decide what outcomes they want to achieve. Citizens decide how that outcome will be met, and the public administration is the platform that enables that to happen. It's a very, very different way, radically different way of running government, and it effectively is turning the entire model on its head, because we're trying to put citizens in control rather than the people who work in the service provider organisation. Now, that model then needs a different form of decision making, because if you've taken away the ability to be top-down, then you have to take your decisions in a very different way that allows people to participate. Two fundamental ways for me that that were the key approaches that we started taking in Lambeth were co-production and cooperative commissioning. Now, co-production, I'm sure people here are very, very familiar with. Co-production is when the service provider and the service user work together to decide how that service is going to be delivered and what the outcome will be. But without thinking back to the issue about power, it doesn't work, because you can't have co-production between two sides which do not have equal power. So you have to create new forms of accountability and ownership. that gives citizens the power to participate in co-production on equal terms to the service provider. And if you don't do that, then their voice can be ignored and the co-production won't achieve everything that it's possible to achieve. Cooperative commissioning is the decision-making process that we started to use. And those jargonistic terms there are an attempt to explain what cooperative commissioning is trying to do. Commissioning, you're familiar with the term, is how you take decisions and what services you bring in to meet the outcomes that you define with people. It needs to be outcome-focused and user-led if it's going to work. Outcomes-focused means you let the citizens choose what outcome they want to achieve. You don't let the civil servants define for them what it is they're going to work towards. You let the citizens choose, and very often what the citizens want is different to what the public service provider thinks that they want. And in that space is a great inefficiency and the cause of great frustration as people find the services are not pushing them towards where they want to go. So it must be outcomes focused, and that can be very, very challenging to service providers. It also has to be user-led. So the people who are using the services need to be in the driving seat about what services they're going to get. So we put in place at Lambeth a different decision-making process that meant you were forbidden to take decisions unless you could demonstrate that the people affected by that decision had been intimately involved in what that decision was going to be. If you couldn't demonstrate that, you couldn't take the decision. So it was an attempt to empower citizens. And that as a model, I mean, it's a very broad approach to describe there, but it operates at many different tiers. You can take decisions at a strategic level for an entire city, or you can take them at a very, very local level for a particular neighborhood, or you can even take them that way by bringing together people right across a city who have a particular specific need or vulnerability that they share in common. So you create a community of interest. And when you have a group of people that define an outcome, but there is no service to provide that outcome for them, then the city has got the platform in place to help set up an enterprise, whether a social enterprise or otherwise, that can help to meet that need. Now, in terms of outcomes, this is what we started to see. You get higher quality services because they're much more accountable and responsive to the people using them rather than the people managing them who have a different experience of them. They're much better at achieving the outcomes people really want because the people are defining them rather than being allocated onto services which don't quite meet their needs. That makes them more efficient because they're doing more of what people really want and less of what managers think they want. It tends to respect social value, not just financial value, because social values matters to communities in ways that it doesn't matter sometimes in the spreadsheets that our accountants are using. And it tends to push you towards preventative services that prevent problems happening rather than services that are managing problems. Because most people, given the choice, would rather prevent a problem happening in their life rather than have it managed once that problem already exists. The relational aspect about family, community, and social networks comes in because if you give people, say people who need social care in the home, the choice about who they want to provide that care, often they will want somebody they know from their family or their community to come and do it, but current public procurement rules often prevent those very people from coming in, and so a stranger who knows them less well comes in. If you give citizens choice, they will very often push back things into the community that they are part of. So for me, the litmus test about outcomes and whether we were doing the right thing was very, very simple. If a decision meant that people had more control over their own life, then we were going in the right direction. So it's an approach, not a fixed legal model. But that, for me, was the litmus test. Now, there are barriers to doing this. And again, I listened with great interest to the Mayor talking about the challenges that there are in any innovation. And of course, there are very, very big barriers to overcome in organizations that are fearful, perhaps, of change. But for me, these were some of the ways that we start to overcome those barriers. As a leader, you have to be very clear, consistent, and persistent about what it is you want your organization to do. Otherwise, people don't get the message that you're talking about. We also found that there was passive resistance. We would talk about co-production, and the organization would adopt that language, but it wouldn't really be co-producing things. It would be doing things the same way that it had always done them, but it would be using different language. So you have to get underneath the language and see what's really going on. Many employees find it quite alarming to be asked to operate in a very different context, because it's not what their entire professional experience has taught them to expect. And I think instead of cajoling and pushing people, you have to work with them at a pace they're prepared to go at and help them to understand, by showing them examples of services being run in a different way, how much better this can be for the worker as well as for the people who are using those services. Effectively, you're taking a great big bureaucracy of frontline staff's shoulders, and that allows them to take part in innovation as well. Training, coaching and mentoring staff was a very important part of getting this change through. And in Lambeth, we identified people in the organisation and outside the organisation who got the change we were trying to make, and supported and trained them up to be ambassadors for this kind of change, and put the organisation under pressure from inside and outside to make the change that we wanted to see. So that led me to this place, because very often people feel, particularly those who use the most complex public services, because their lives are very complex and the challenges are complex, they feel that they have no control over their life and things are done to them, not with them. By adopting models that truly empower those citizens and overcoming the organizational barriers that get in the way, the sense of liberation that those people feel is enormous. It feels like getting back control of their own life. And I think by being able to do that to the most marginalized and the most vulnerable in our society truly is the route to making the fairer society that all of us in this room want to see. Thank you.
너무나 감사드립니다. 사실 시민에게 더 많은 권한을 주면 좋겠다, 줘야 된다, 이런 말들은 상당히 쉬운 말일 수 있는데요. 그러기 위해서 어떻게 행정 전체가 어떤 실험을 해야 되고, 어떤 프로세스로 어떤 과정을 겪어야 되고, 어떤 결과를 생각해야 되는지 아주 자세하게 알려주셔서 감사합니다. 다음 사례로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. 아마도 한국에서는, 특히 스타트업 씬에서는 가장 핫한 지역이 아닐까 싶고, 많은 사람들이 성지순례처럼 다녀가고 있다고 얘기를 들었는데요. 이번에는 에스토니아 전자정부 최고 정보 책임자이신 심시쿠투님을 모시도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Hello. Tere. That's in Estonian. Well, as I was supposed to be in Seoul anyway for a meeting, I'm very happy that I managed to make it work and actually join you for this session as well. And I believe in many ways it is like a reunion with Mayor Park. We met just 2 weeks ago, was it, in Tallinn when you visited kindly. And I was just actually sitting there and thinking, with Geoff, it must have been almost exactly 10 years now when I first sort of bugged you and bothered you and came to see you about sort of how to really push social innovation more widely. Look, if Steve was power, then I'll be technology. Because, well, first of all, as a government chief information officer, then really my role and our team's role is to oversee and push the digital innovation through our government. And exactly, it has many spillovers and overlaps, of course, with social innovation more widely. And I do believe that I think some of the things I meant to speak about actually very nicely echo the themes that already have been emerging. But briefly, to get to the point, I am sure most of people have not been to Estonia here or heard very little about. So I'll give you a bit of a glimpse. So we are a tiny country, a small country in the northeast of Europe. So right there with the rest of Nordics. And so when I say tiny, we are 1.3 million people. That's it. And with that 1.3 million people, we have to run a country. So with, fully fledged policies and all the areas you can think about, from welfare to defense and so forth. That is why we have been very driven for innovation and efficiency as the motivator of that, because that is our way to pull off this challenge of how to really provide a country that our people would like to have and the country that we would like to live in. So that is why we started experimenting also with technology, with digital technology, already 20 or 25 years back, when it was just basically, internet was just picking up and becoming a mainstream thing. And it's been a roller coaster ride ever since. But to give you a glimpse sort of where we are today with it, and then I'll get to sort of some of the lessons we have learned. Well, our core focus has been primarily, at least as a central government, on interactions between people and government, and how to use digital, how to digitally transform them so that we would actually do a better service for the people. Today we stand at a point where almost anything you need to do as a citizen, as an entrepreneur, as a resident, you can do yourself online with us. The only exceptions are a few things we consider to be high risk, like getting married. So we really want to know, you make sure you know what you're doing when you're doing it. Same thing with real estate, because funny enough, for most people, this is the most valuable asset they have had or ever will have. So we want to make sure they're not being coerced out of this in terms of selling it away, for example. So you have to see somebody physically. Everything else, any type of application you can think about, any type of service you can think about, any sort of interaction you can think about, that is online. So if you are a company, if you're an entrepreneur, then literally all the things from starting a company, how you run it, and all the bureaucracy and red tape involved happens, there is a digital option. And by the way, not only an option, it's a must. Once you have a company up and running, you have to do things electronically, digitally with us. This goes all the way to something where Geoff already gave a shout out to, e-residency. So these days, because we have all these things digitally available, we are able to attract entrepreneurs from around the world to become virtually Estonian. By the way, yes, Mayor is also an honorary digital Estonian by this point. To become virtually Estonian and set up a company through Estonia that is fully legit in the whole of the European Union. And you can run this, from the office here in Seoul without any middleman and little costs only involved. So basically, digital has allowed us to really break beyond our borders in this regard. But if I jump back to citizens, well, we have also started to devote quite a bit of attention to those situations where people perhaps have the direst need to come across public sector, at least in Estonia, where, let's say, health is also a public sector provided service. Then the point here is that, yes, we can take care of bureaucracy, but we especially should focus at those points in life where people should have exactly the easiest, the most hassle-free service possible, because, again, they have the direst need, like when they fall sick or somebody's sick in their family. The fact that there's a digital health record, they might be treated faster and better now. The fact that there's digital prescriptions, I don't have to get a paper slip from my GP or a doctor just to get my medicine. All these things save time and money for people, but also for the system. Doctors can now spend more time and treating the things that the people and the things that they should actually be treating, as opposed to seeing the same patients only just to give them paper slips for medicine. So things like these start making a difference. And all the way, we've done also focus to some of the, let's say, interactions that people not only have to do, like bureaucracy often is, but also the interactions that people will want to do, like vote, or to be part of government and decision-making. So in Estonia, you can vote online. You can be here, you can be in Fiji, you can be in London, wherever, and still cast your vote if you're a citizen. Or if you happen to be traveling, again, it's very convenient this way. We've managed to make it through internet more accessible for you to participate, to be part of decision-making. And why this matters is also one more thing. Well, one thing is people do move, and that's not a cliche, it's a fact of life. But secondly, this is not a random picture. We have national elections first Sunday of March. It can be a crappy weather. So at the very least, basically, there's now a much more convenient option for you to still cast your vote from the comfort of your home or office. So these are some of the glimpses and examples of, hopefully, that give you a bit of taste what it is like to be Estonian, or the digital services and options we have available. Like I said before, we did them for efficiency, and we have lots of evidence and examples from this efficiency, from all different walks of life, how indeed we do perform way better as a public sector and the whole of economy by relying on digital tools. For example, the digital signatures that we use in the whole of economy save us about a work week for every working person in terms of time saved, or how our police is more effective in solving cases, or the health sector queues are smaller. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that digital, we have seen it really works. It really does make a change in terms of the country and delivering better. Now, what are some of the things we have learned? I'll try to be brief here. And like I said, this will echo some of the themes that were brought up. But first of all, even though I do speak from central government point of view, and I do speak from a digital point of view, what we have seen is we can greatly enable innovation more widely, not just, by the way, for digital realm, and not just for government realm, but they're included. So basically, platforms are a big thing. If we can provide platforms that will then allow everyone in the government or beyond to innovate upon, we save them time and money, and basically we make innovation happen faster. So sometimes it's simple things. I mean, I'll get a bit technical, but I mean, things like digital identity. If whatever sector we come from, whatever sort of interaction we try to digitize, we need to have trust between those who use the service and those who provide a service. There needs to be some sort of trusted interaction happening. Identity is the way to provide for that. Whatever token you use, whatever way of identity you use, but fundamentally some sort of secure identity has to be there for the interaction to happen safely, especially as the risks sort of emerge. Our solution was, why don't we have a nationwide identity platform, right? That all different sectors then can use all the way to private sector, and that made innovation now happen faster in all different areas. Another example, perhaps again a technical one, is something we call X-Road, which is essentially a protocol, a common way to exchange, share, or pull, or push data between different parts of government and also beyond. Why this matters is that, of course, people want a seamless interaction, right? They want to get things done at most in one interaction with the government. That means different silos need to share data, exchange data, and that's the way to do it. Again, you can build those type of connections one by one. A platform makes it all happen faster, right? A common way makes you interoperable immediately across the whole government. So platforms, we've seen them take it really sort of long ways. But the second thing, the platforms, even if I think about identity, even if I think about X-Road, what we're clearly seeing is that the mightiest tool of government, of course, is always regulation. And I think in this regard, we have really seen the rules, the regulation, the laws can greatly push innovation. Quite often, it's actually, people think about it in a different way, right? In laws, rules are barriers. We have to get rid of them. But what we have seen, if you use them a bit so wisely, they can actually push you in certain directions. And I guess this is sort of what Geoff also brought about in terms of anticipatory regulation, sort of as exactly another example of that. So to give you a point, digital identity was so powerful because it enabled digital signatures. Why were digital signatures suddenly accepted? Sorry. It was because we made a simple 3-line law that said every agency, government and beyond, has to accept digital signature issued by national digital identity, just like a handwritten one. That's it. Nobody could say no now, right? And that pushed it into different areas. X-Road for data exchange became powerful because we brought in a legal rule we call once only. And the point of that rule is that if some part of government knows some bit of data about me, the rest of government should not ask this data again, but rather connect to the original source and use data in the back end so that, again, the next interaction for me becomes faster, simpler, seamless. So that's why our tax returns are quite smooth, right? For most people, it's less than 3 minutes of a thing once a year, because again, we reuse data we've assembled through different parts of government through the year. And that pushed, this once only, this rule pushed the use of platform, but also pushed redesign really from user and user interaction point of view. So rules can be, in that sense, quite a big deal. And the third point, in many ways, it's perhaps easier said than done, but I mean, it has really been our story as well. Leadership matters a lot. Leadership, both political as well as also administrative, right? So I don't think I have to go to too many details, but we've seen from evidence that, I mean, without the leaders we've had and their push to also the, us, the technologists or the, people in our organizations, we wouldn't be near as far as we are. And why it matters is that I think at the end of the day, we all know that the trick in the game with digital innovation as well is not the tech part. Tech is the same around the world. Yes, it might come with different price and so forth, but fundamentally, we all have access to the same kind of technology. But how we choose to use it to transform how we do things, how we work, how we provide services. That makes a difference. And that's a transformation part. That's the change of our work and governance and government procedures and processes and services. That's the change. That's what it's really about. And that driving change, of course, you all know it. That takes change management. That takes leadership. So from our point of view, yes, we've been lucky. We've been lucky that also we've been able to experiment, which is really your sort of key topic as well. Many of the things I sort of showed here started as experiments. Voting online. Nobody had done it in the world, right? We're still the only country really to do it this way. But that's okay. We always seen it as experiment. How can we make it possible in a secure way? That was the thing to solve, not finding reasons why not to. E-residency started as an experiment, and by the way, still is. We see it like a government startup of sorts. We sort of basically have to prove at each point that it's worthy of continuing, and we try to scale it further and further and further. So this experimentation now we really sort of see as a strategy for ourselves. And that is a lot what my office, what we are tasked with, to really be the sort of exactly the chiefs of driving this sort of experimentation through the government and continuously forward. And that was my last point. For us, what we see in Estonia, we are nowhere near done. Even though things are available online, we are constantly finding for the next things how to further iterate and improve our digital government, and through that, of course, the innovation scene and the government more widely. So with that, I thank you for the attention, and I guess exactly, if there's a chance, happy to take a few questions afterwards. Thank you.
감사합니다. 하나하나 들어도 다 너무나 실험적인데 그게 한 나라에서 다 하고 있다고 하니까 여전히 좀 정말 저런 게 가능한가 이런 생각이 들기도 하는 거네요. 예. 다음으로는 오늘 발표해 주신 네 분을 모시고 토론의 시간을 가질 텐데요. 네. 처음 발표해 주셨던 제프 몰건 네스타 대표님께서 좌장을 맡아주시고 박원순 시장님과 스티브 리드 의원님 그리고 심시쿠두 정보 책임자님께서 함께 토론을 나누도록 하겠습니다. 아마 궁금하신 부분들 있으실 텐데요. 이 시간을 이용해서 좋은 시간 가지시기를 바라겠습니다. 그럼 큰 박수로 네 분 맞이 부탁드리겠습니다.
Okay, I hope that was interesting and stimulating for you. It should have raised lots of questions. If everything is clear, we have probably failed in our task. So who would like to start with either a comment or a question? We've had lots covered from, obviously, the 7 years of Mayor Park in Seoul, experimental culture, how do you break down the silos in practice, how do you really make people feel power? And I will walk around and I might just come to someone to ask a question if no one puts their hand up. But can you indicate to me if you would like to come in with a question at this point? Perhaps I will pick on colleagues in the front row. Here is someone. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentations. They've all been very informative. I'm Samira. I'm a founder of a non-profit research organization in Spain. It's mainly driven towards innovating social initiatives for developing countries. Being born in India, I've experienced firsthand many problems. My question is towards Steve. You've mentioned a lot about bottom-up initiatives. Could you give me an example of a people's initiative in London which is developing public spaces for the people, which is designed from them?
Yeah, you just want me to give you any? Was that one that you're...
Any example?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, one I was going to talk about in my next session, I'm in the next session as well, worryingly for all of you, was the issue I talked about of violent youth crime. If you read the media or if you've been to London, you'll know that we've had an increasing rate of killings of young people by other young people. Well over 100 this year, young people stabbed to death by other young people, which is massively higher than the year before, which was massively higher than the year before that. And all the resources of the police, all the resources of the public authorities that is being pumped in are failing to reduce the scale of the problem. So in one estate in Lambeth, we set up a community youth trust. They gave that community control of the resources and decision-making power over what support was brought in to get their young people out of offending. And because they were able to define the support, and because it was their children who were at risk of dying, and on that estate there was a very high level of youth crime, they all knew by name children that had been killed by other children, that focus that concerned parents and neighbours had got right in there and helped set up support that got those children out of offending and steered their lives back on track. And they did it initially with almost no money. And yet they were able to get more young people out of offending on one estate than the local authority was able to get out of offending across the entire local authority's area. So what that said to me is, if you involve people who are facing a problem as severe as their children being killed because of violent youth crime, even there they will find ways to solve that problem because they have to and they want to, and they're living the lives and witnessing the lives that are being ruined, and that insight gives them something so powerful in the decision that when you apply it, it makes a difference. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but are there any initiatives in terms of unemployment reduction or youth empowerment or rehabilitation of these victims or the ones who conduct violence?
Yeah, sure. No. So this is a model of youth empowerment. So the board that owns that, it's a community youth trust. That's a legal form that it takes. The board itself is 50% young people, and all of them are from the poorest neighbourhoods. So they're allowed to elect their own representatives, but it's biased in favour of the poorest areas. Half the board is young people, and they're managing a budget of £3 million, which is what, about $4 million, about $3.5 million. So it's a very, very significant amount of money, and they're able to influence it. And they don't just bring in interventions to tackle youth crime. They're setting up sports activities, cultural activities. They're getting young people to go and do work experiences in local business. Now, this community, 70 or 80% of the families living there are on welfare. So many of these young people are growing up never having witnessed what it's like to go out and earn money for a living. So being supported into that is very helpful. The businesses support it, the schools support it, the police support it, the youth workers support it, but it's all in the control of the young people living on those neighbourhoods. So it's directly empowering them. Yeah.
So we might come back to this a bit later. One of the streams of empowerment, which maybe you'll be talking about later, Steve, is giving citizens direct control over money. It may be in a personal account, it may be in a neighborhood, or it may be a group of people who share a health condition, but then having some direct control over public money. So perhaps a bit later you might say, is Estonia doing anything like this? What's the power bit added to the technology? But let's take two more questions first, one here and then in the front row. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Tak Chun from the Unit Social Business Center of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So I think Steve addressed raised an important question about social innovation is giving power to the people. Because many people would regard social innovation nowadays, I think from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and also mainland as well. Usually the participants are mainly middle class, quite well off. They have more time to participate. And so the issue is that how to include those, for example, the poor, the marginalized, excluded into the social innovation process. I just like to ask Mayor how Seoul is doing about that, and especially on Estonia, because usually people would question digital divide, and also the digital literacy is an important obstacle for those marginalized or the older people to be included in the digital e-residency program. And so just like to have your feedback.
Maybe Mayor Park, why don't you start with this question?
예, 아주 중요한 질문이시네요. 그러니까 보통 사회 혁신이라든지 주민 참여의 경우에 주로 중산층 이상의 또는 교육받은 사람들의 참여가 많지 않냐 이런 말씀이죠. 실제로 주로 온라인에서 이루어지는 것들은 이렇게 아무래도 디지털에 이렇게 깨어 있는 그런 중산층이나 교육받은 사람들이 많이 활용할 가능성이 많죠. 그래서 저는 오프라인의 이런 스페이스나 이런 것도 굉장히 중요하다고 생각하는데요. 그래서 그 공간의 위대함을 제가 아까 주제 발표할 때 말씀드리지 않았습니까? 그래서 이 서울시의 경우에는 이런 공간, 여기는 주로 청년들이 참여하는 청년들을 위한 이런 혁신파크나 또 무중력지대라는 곳도 있고 또는 지역 주민들이 자기 동네를 재생시키는 과정에서 또 펄릭 스페이스가 있고 거기서 또 누구든지 모여서 자기 지역의 얘기를 할 수 있도록 하는 그래서 이게 그 주로 이 온라인 시대에 아까 에스토니아에서 얘기하시는 그런 것이 기본적으로 굉장히 중요하고 서울시도 지금 예를 들어서 민주주의 서울이라고 하는 플랫폼을 만들어서 그 온라인 플랫폼에 사람들이 어떤 이슈를 제기하고 토론하고 결정하고 실행할 수 있도록 이렇게 하고 있지만 동시에 아주 나이 같은 사람들이나 또는 이런 디지털에 약한 그런 사람들은 또 오프라인에서도 이렇게 다양한 스페이스를 만들어서 이런 자신의 문제, 자신의 지역의 문제를 토론하고 또 이슈를 제기하고 결정할 수 있는 이런 기회를 함께 제공하는 이런 게 또 필요해 보입니다.
And I think that's the experience everywhere, like in the many cities in Spain which have these platforms. Unless you also have offline engagement, you end up with quite a distorted participation. So it's online plus offline. But maybe in Estonia is the exception. You have no digital divide in Estonia, do you?
Well, we still sort of do. We still have, let's say, 11% of people not online. But I want to say one thing first in terms of the complementarity between, let's say, online and offline and spaces especially. The funny thing is that even though we do have a wide majority of people online and very sort of heavy users when we compare statistically, even let's say within Europe, then the funny thing is that we don't see them engaging online that much when it comes to politics and decision making. Still, the old offline version works way better. In terms of people going to a town hall meeting is way better than basically asking for some sort of feedback online in terms of participation rate even. So there is something in there, I mean, in terms of just, you know, the immediate hands-on face-to-face discussion and debate to be had, and we can't sort of, you know, neglect that, of course, but we can still complement it through other sort of digital channels. Divide. Yes, so we still have 11% who are not online, but I want to say one thing. I think there was a bit of foresight back in the day when we started going digital in the first place, that actually before we did anything in the government, there was quite a bit of build-up in terms of bringing digital literacy around the country, starting from schools, elderly, and so forth. And then when there was enough critical mass, then really the more massive digitization in terms of government began. Of course, that was 25 years ago. That was, like I said, internet was just taking off. Today, we will be able to move much faster because, I mean, I think in all countries, there's more than critical mass of people online anyway, right? But you're right to say that we would have to approach the sort of divides. And so that is why, for example, we still invest into bringing up literacy in terms of those parts of the population who may not be online. And in Estonian case, the biggest correlation is between level of education, not gender, not urban, rural, not age. Level of education matters. And my last point is this, but even despite level of education, what we have seen, and why do we also have quite a high participation rate among the elderly, fundamentally it's a motivation issue. If people have a motivation, if they find some reason why to be online, they're eager to learn it. And here I would make an argument based on at least our experience as well, for those groups that might be marginalized, actually the relative bonus effect of going online, the motivation might be even bigger. So we have had very eager sort of actually willingness to learn how to be online from these sort of groups. If only we can cater enough sort of training and skilling there. Yeah.
And John, just one last question for you before, if you could bring the mic here. So we have had Russian interference in elections in America, in Germany, in France. You are right next to Russia. And these other countries are frightened of digital voting because they worry Vladimir Putin will win the election. What is your advice to these other countries?
Well, you have to be careful indeed. But I want to say one thing. As your examples pointed out, it doesn't matter where you are in this world. You can still be attacked in cyberspace or targeted through trolling and information warfare. Look, we have chosen not to be afraid. So that is why, because there are risks, whether with our neighbors or otherwise, for other sort of malicious actors around the world. That is why we have to be good at cybersecurity, right? And if you wish, I hate this word, but strategic communication as well with our population. But that's basically just the cost of being online. We still see that the benefits way outweigh the risks that there might be, and sort of we just have to manage those risks daily.
My question is whilst I very much believe in the citizens and giving power, etc., I also think our institutions needs to change. One, you're all males, but we won't go into that. Bit of an issue here.
Well, come join us.
But number two, I wonder whether you could each just give a really concise example of how you as institutions are taking a more integrated, joined up, or integrated approach working across silos in your own situation. So in a city, how are the government silos working together in a more integrated approach to do it in Lambeth and also in Estonia? Jeff, if you've got a bonus one, that's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, and many organizations around the world now have a rule that you should never take part in an all-male group. So I may resign at this point and hand over to Louise. But it's quite a good rule to have. Steve, why don't you start off on that?
Yeah. Well, it's easy for me because I don't have an organisation anymore because I'm no longer the leader of the council. But the way that you get around silo work, I'm telling you what, because
I want a real example, by the way.
No, I'm going to give you a real example. So I first was elected in 1998 onto the council, which delivers the public services. And for 10 years, we wondered, how on earth do you overcome silo mentality? How do you get these different silos to work better across each other? And in the end, we came up with the answer, and it's so obvious, it's blinding. You abolish the silos. So what we did is we flattened the organizational structure. We got rid of departments. They still had to have executive directors because you needed them by law, but they had no responsibility for services. And we put in place a flat structure that allowed citizens, using cooperative commissioning, to define the outcome they wanted and then bring in the service that they wanted to meet it. And the council's role became to mediate that relationship. So to wrap capacity around the marginalised, vulnerable, socially excluded people who need the most support but have the smallest voice, the council wrapped that capacity around them so that they could participate. And it revolutionised the way that the council was working. So much innovation and change that the council was no longer in charge of it, the community was. So the way to get cross-silo working, abolish silos.
Mayor Park.
예, 그 한국 사회는 오랫동안 이제 이 유교적 사회였기 때문에 예컨대 관과 민은 이 관이 높고 이 시민은 낮다라든지 이런 오랫동안 전통적 의식이 있었고 그게 현대가 됐지만 여전히 사실 고쳐지지 않은 부분이 있죠. 그러기다가 예컨대 시민사회는 아직도 굉장히 척박하고 또 시민사회가 있더라도 상당히 갈등적이거나 뭐 이렇게 서로 대립적인 관계였죠. 물론 이제 많이 개선은 되고 있습니다만은 그래서 이제 서울시의 경우에는 우선 어떤 시민사회나 전문가들의 이 행정 참여를 높이면서 동시에 또 시민들의 직접 참여를 보장하는 여러 가지 제도를 취하지만 동시에 그 중간 지원 기관들을 엄청 많이 만들었어요. 그래서 관과 민이 직접 이렇게 서로 연결이 되기 어려운 경우에는 그 중간 지원 기관들이 또 중간의 역할을 하도록 해서 아마 이것도 굉장히 특징적인 것이 아닐까 이렇게 생각이 되는데요. 아무튼 이런 뭐 다양한 방식들이 함께 동원됐다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있을 것 같습니다.
Sim.
Yeah. First of all, I think a lot of, again, our office, government CIO office, or similar outfits in other governments as well, we are tasked with finding workarounds around silos. I mean, if you're not able to kill them in the first place, then at least sort of, take away excuses why you can't work together. So stuff that I mentioned about the X-Road as a data sharing platform is an example of that. Nobody in the Estonian government can say, oh, it's so hard for me to share data with the next agency. And by the way, not only is it technologically not valid anymore, but we also force them through law, like I said before. Once only sort of, enforces that. So that's one thing that basically I think there are sort of agencies or units or whatever you want to call us tasked with sort of breaking or finding workarounds the silos is one way to do it. But secondly, I sort of echo, I think, what Steve was saying. If I look from digital innovation point of view, again, bringing user, the people, the person really into the focus starts breaking this down. So if, let's say, what we see next in Estonia, I'll be brief here, we are now trying to kill interactions, right? That even though they are digitally there, why we have them in the first place? We are redesigning them around life events. And that's really where it's, multiple agencies have to come together, that stuff would really happen for people at most in one interaction that is seamless or, let's say, integrated across silos like that. So if a baby is born, I wouldn't have to go to 3 different web portals and sites to get my stuff done. No, in one go, I get stuff done immediately. And again, but that has come through the focus on the people and what is really their need, and then the willingness or ability to deliver for that.
So if I could offer an answer, I think there are many top-down ways of smashing silos, and you can create horizontal roles, you can create horizontal budgets, you can create horizontal teams, and I actually wrote a little book about this once. But I just want to give another example, which is the more bottom-up way of destroying silos, which I think is widely usable. We've now run an experiment in about 30 areas in the UK on the boundaries of health and care. And it is a very simple method. You take a region of maybe 300,000, 500,000 people. You bring everyone into one room who has a job relevant to old people who may have a condition which brings them into hospital. So in the room you'll have doctors and nurses and municipalities, NGOs, community groups, and they all together have to redesign the system to reduce unnecessary hospital admissions by 40%. They have a target. And when you bring them together, they are all smart people. They completely rewire the data. They redesign the triage and assessment. They come up with new ways of supporting people in their home so they can be helped when they have a small problem, a fall, for example, rather than going to the emergency part of the hospital. And then you put those into practice in an experimental way, but very fast. We call it a 100-day method. So you do sprints, 100-day sprints, and then through the experience of getting success with that, relationships are built up, human relationships and new working practices, which then feed back up to the leaders of the silos. So I've become convinced you need the top-down structural shifts, but also you have to get the public system working as a system and jointly owning a challenge which forces you to redesign how it works. And the next field we're working on is unemployment, youth unemployment, where usually we find the people who are the system have not met each other before. So simply bringing them together in a room and working on a process is very liberating if structured in the right way, because in most governments, in most of the world, the people in the different silos literally never talk to each other. So, who would like to come in with another comment or question? Anil, you've been very uncharacteristically quiet. And I will give you a microphone.
I think the discussion that has taken place is very enlightening, but the concern about giving autonomy, matching autonomy with agency is very vital. Autonomy is freedom to act. Agency is ability to use that freedom. Many times when we do decentralization, we give autonomy to local groups, but we must also help them to use that autonomy. And that's a painstaking process. Otherwise, few groups, very articulate, will take the advantage of decentralization, and the large number of people will remain silent, as I was, and miss the opportunity. So therefore, how do we create agency? And that happens through small actions and a lot of ground for mistakes. We have to allow mistakes to take place and publicly admit, yes, this was a mistake, fine, let's go ahead and try something else.
So Anil has half answered his own question, but I will remake it, because you are all leaders and have been leaders. How do you spread not just power, but confidence to use power and sometimes to make mistakes? What's the secret of spreading that confidence? Who would like to start on that? Sim.
I don't think there's a secret source. At least I haven't found one exactly the same thing like you said. I mean, in literally every employment conversation I have, let's say if I'm employing someone new, one of the things I make sure to tell them is, look, it's fine to make a mistake if you made an honest effort. I think just basically just, filtering and this delivering this constant as a message is the best, at least I've seen.
Yeah. I think your insight is absolutely right into your own question. You can only go at a pace that people are capable and prepared to work with, otherwise the whole thing falls over. So I'll give you a very small example. We had issues in Lambeth, as you would anywhere, with some neighbourhoods had little areas that were grot spots. So dumping was happening there, prostitutes were using them, drug taking was happening there. Everybody that lived there hated it, but they felt they couldn't do anything. So we would give them, the council would give them the resources they need to turn that space into something useful, either a vegetable growing area, a children's play area, but they had to get the volunteers together to do the work, but they would be provided with all the materials they needed to get it done, and they would also get some young offenders, people who had committed crime, that would be allocated to go and do some of the heavy lifting on those projects as well. And so all over the borough, we did one a week. These different neighbourhoods came together and they fixed a little problem in their area, but it also brought the neighbours together, and they got to know each other by name, and they got to understand the issues in the neighbourhood better. And they started out by just fixing little areas that were causing a problem, but as there were more and more of them around the place, they connected with each other, they joined up, and they started to tackle bigger problems. Like in Brixton, there was a problem of on-street prostitution, and these little groups came together and they decided that was what they wanted to tackle. They wanted to bring in more support for the young girls, and a lot of them were underage, who were on the street selling their bodies, and they brought in support and resources, and they resolved the problem. So it started out small, but they ended up solving quite a big social problem. If we'd said to them, go and solve on-street prostitution, they would all run a mile. But because we started off with something where they experienced success, their confidence grew, and then they were able to take on something bigger. Well, I mean, this is another point here, is the general instinct of public authorities, if they see something working, is to scale it up into a universal service. So, but by doing that, in order to make something that's working in one area available to everybody everywhere, that kills the very local nature of it that makes it work. So I learned the difference between scalability and replicability. I hope that got translated okay. Where scaling it up is turning a small thing into a big universal service. Replicating is you bring other people from other areas to see what's been done and help them adapt it to their own area. And they'll do it slightly differently, and they'll fit it to their circumstances and their capabilities, and they will innovate and do things for themselves. You get enough of this going on across a whole neighbourhood or whole community.
Replicating the process rather than product.
Yeah, the council provides the capacity to allow that to happen. The very, very different way about thinking of public services.
So I would like Mr. Park to share his answer. For those of us who are visitors, Seoul looks like a city of very confident innovators, but how do you become super confident? And then I'd like anyone else here who has an answer, not a question, an answer to come in as well. But first.
네, 스스로 해보게 하는 것만큼 그 사람에게 역량을 키우는 것은 없다고 저는 생각합니다. 그러니까 해보게 하는 것이죠. 작은 것부터, 단순한 것부터. 그래서 예컨대 서울시 같은 경우는 그 부모들이 스스로 자기 동네에서 뭐 하라는 것까지도 아니고 그냥 모여갖고 얘기 나누고 수다를 한번 떨어봐라. 그래서 우리가 300만 원씩 주기 시작했어요. 그러니까 마을 만들기, 뭐 사회적 경제, 뭐 이런 큰 거 생각을 처음부터 하게 하면 어려우니까 그냥 모여서 그냥 차 마시고 뭐 그러다 보면 우리 동네에 뭐가 예? 가로등이 깨졌다. 그러면 이거 어떡하지? 이건 동사무소에 가서 고치라고 요구를 해야 되겠구만. 전화하고 이런 것부터 시작해서 자기 동네에 관심을 갖게 하고 그리고 그 동네 어떤 보편적 문제에 뭔가 해결 방법을 찾아보게 하고 이렇게 하면서 마을에 관심을 갖고 점점 더 활동가가 될 수 있는 이런 과정을 만들어가는 게 굉장히 중요한 것 같습니다. 특히 서울과 같이 이런 스스로 참여해 본 적이 없는 행정에 관여해 본 적이 없는 사람들이 스스로 자기의 문제, 자기 동네의 문제, 자기 커뮤니티의 문제에 관심을 갖게 하는 것. 저는 이것이 모든 것의 시작이라고 생각하고 그래서 이런 과정을 통해서 지금 아마도 수천 명, 수만 명의 활동가들이 탄생한 게 아닌가 이렇게 생각합니다.
So we have one answer there, and if anyone else has a very brief contribution, please indicate now. So here, so you and there. Yeah.
Oh, do I need to give an answer for the questions?
I
But
prefer
actually,
an answer.
I have one really question
Okay.
to I ask you, all of you, and I have one suggestion to the Mr. Mayor Park and as a people of the city of Seoul. First of all,
Keep it very brief. We have only a couple of minutes
yeah,
left.
sure.
So very brief.
I think in order to achieve the outcome for the welfare of a city, I think experiment is very important. But I think many administrations and bureaucracy has their own time schedule to use the public money. But if the citizens has any imagination and ideas to improve their welfare of their life, and they try to do many things in experiment way. But sometimes the administration cannot wait that kind of time to achieve the outcome for their people's welfare. So I really want to listen how to solve that kind of differences between the administrative schedules and the outcome from Mr. Steve. Yeah.
Okay, so patient city, and could you take the microphone over to here? And final comment or question from you. Yeah.
예. 저는 여기 노동자입니다. 그러니까 이제 서울시 안에서 일하는 노동자인데 실제 이제 공공과 행정 혁신을 보면 우리가 고민한 문제가 참 많은데 그 속에서 먹고 사는 문제가 가장 크다고 생각합니다. 그 부분에서 서울시 내에 이제 노동자들이 참 많습니다. 비정규직 노동자도 그렇고. 근데 이제 실제 서울시에서 이제 비정규직 노동에 있어서 그 노동자들이 기간이 정해져 있는 형태로 계약직 형태로 참 많이 있었는데 서울시에서 선도적으로 핵심적으로 어쨌든 공공 부분 비정규직 정규직 전환을 많이 했습니다. 그래서 먹고 사는 문제가 많이 해결되었는데 실제 그 부분에서 아직까지 모자란 부분이 참 많습니다. 많은 부분에서 우리가 어떻게 보면 아까 여기 우리 스티브 리드님이 말씀하셨던 것처럼 그분들이 가지고 있는 권한과 힘은 하나도 없습니다. 그래서 공공 부분이라고 하면 그 속에서 일하는 이제 관료, 공무원들 실질적으로 그걸 인원을 체크하고 집행하고 실천하는 부분이 있어야 되는데 그 부분이 아직까지 제대로 이루어지는 부분이 좀 없습니다. 서울시가. 그래서 그런 부분에서 서울시가 가지고 있는 그리고 여기 계시는 각 나라에서 그렇게 비정규직에 대한 그 갈등 기구라든지 그런 부분을 조정할 수 있는 행태가 있는지 그리고 그런 혁신을 이루어서 하고 있는지 그게 좀 궁금합니다. 저희 서울시 이제 제가 서울시에 일하고 있지만 노동자가 실제 그 관이나 지자체에 어떠한 부분에서 열악한 부분에서 얘기를 하면 실제 그거에 이루어지는 게 전혀 없어요. 피드백도 없고. 그러니까 아예 그 권한이 아예 주어지지 않습니다. 그래서 그 권한을 주어지는 행태에 만드는 부분이 있는지 혹시 궁금합니다. 예.
Yeah. So your voice has been heard, but we are out of time, so there will be brief responses. perhaps from Steve and the Mayor. I think this question of casual, precarious work, what is the responsibility of the city for its direct employment, but also for helping other workers who are precarious to have more rights, more powers. This is a big issue all over the world. So maybe, Steve, do you want to say first, and then the Mayor?
Yeah, I'll try and be brief, but they're big, complex questions, but I will try and be brief. I mean, one of the things that councils can do is, I was talking a lot about identifying the outcomes that citizens want to achieve. It's entirely legitimate for elected representatives to set outcomes as well, because they've been elected and the political role isn't taken away by trying to empower citizens. And one of the outcomes we set in Lambeth was good quality, secure employment. So when we were taking decisions about what services to bring in, that was part of the objectives that we set ourselves to meet. And sometimes that would be done by the council itself employing people. Sometimes it would be by preferring organisations that we contracted with that treated their employees fairly. Sometimes those would be worker-owned cooperatives. Sometimes there were other forms of organisation, but we wouldn't contract with organisations that treated their workforce unfairly. So you can set your outcomes that way. To the other gentleman's question, there's not an answer that will always give you the outcome that any particular group of residents want, because there are always limited resources. But I think flatter organisational structures tend to be more responsive, they tend to be faster, they tend to be more agile, and because the role of the council shifts from being a top-down decision maker and provider to becoming a facilitator and an enabler, part of what it tries to do is build leadership capacity in the community that allows more people to take decisions of the kind that you're talking about. So I can't guarantee you 100% magic wand that will always give you everything you want, but I think a different organisational structure and approach to leadership can make it more likely that you can get what you're talking about.
Mr. Barnes.
예, 아까 말씀하신 것처럼 서울시의 경우에는 비정규직을 서울시와 산하기관에 근무하는 비정규직을 대부분 사실 정규직화 했죠. 일정한 그 상시적 이런 근무를 하고 있다든지 이런 요건에 해당되는 사람들은 다 정규직화 했고, 그리고 이제 나머지는 이제 아마 이제 노동조합이 아까 그를 대변하는 대변하는 기관이라는 게 결국 노동조합이지 않겠어요? 그래서 노동조합과의 또 관계를 통해서 그런 것이 뭐 이렇게 해결되는 것이라고 생각하고 있고요. 아까 그 서울시뿐만 아니라 어떤 행정의 정책이라는 것이 이렇게 약간 실험도 필요하고 시간이 필요한데 그걸 이렇게 좀 못 참아주는 것 같다 이런 질문을 하셨는데 사실 뭐 어떤 단연간 계획이라든지 중장기적인 계획이 있기는 하지만 아마도 이 공공기관의 여러 가지 예산 시스템이 1년 단위로 돼 있다든지 또는 그 리더십이 계속 교체되잖아요. 서울 같은 경우는 제가 7년 하고 앞으로 4년 더 하니까 상당히 지속 가능성이 있죠. 그죠? 네, 일관된 정책에 따라서 계속 가고 있잖아요. 근데 많은 경우에 사실 그러지 못하는 이유가 시장 바뀌면 많은 게 바뀌죠. 그래서 제가 앞으로 11년까지는 하는데 그 이상은 못하게 돼 있습니다. 그래서 앞으로 제가 한 100년은 해야 이게 서울시가 완전히 바뀔 텐데 그게 문제인 것 같아요. 좀 대책을 마련해 주세요.
Well, thank you. I just want to make two final comments. One is we have overrun on time. I have failed as a moderator. So next time you must get a woman to play this role. She will be much more competent than me. And secondly, this meeting is a Future Innovation Forum. And in a way, the most important question, I think, in all of this is how do we enable citizens of cities like Seoul or Estonia or the UK to feel that they are in control of shaping the future. This is something they are making in line with their values and their interests, not that the future is something done to them, that they are just passive observers on. And the reason we are also excited by cities like this, but also by Estonia, is they are transforming the society into a testbed, a place of experiment, a place where people can make the future in their own image. And that is a fantastic thing to see. So please join me in clapping our speakers. Back to the women.
뜨거운 토론의 시간을 마련해 주신 네 분의 연사들과 그리고 어려운 토론을 진행해 주신 제프 몰건 네스타 대표님, 그리고 참여해주신 모든 분들 너무나 감사합니다. 이로써 기조 세션을 마무리하려고 하는데요. 네 분에게 큰 박수 한 번 더 부탁드리겠습니다. 사실은 앞으로 1시간 반에서 2시간 정도의 시간이 더 남아있는데 그냥 앉아 계시면 너무 피곤하실 것 같아서 저희가 10분 정도 쉬는 시간 마련해서 여러분들 커피와 다과하실 수 있도록 하려고 합니다. 저희 정확하게 5시 5분에 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.